Hey lads, Mad Hitter here, and welcome to the banner review. I know this was supposed to drop yesterday, but I've been reading a bit more over the new character, Odal, and so this will be a more elaborate one than you'd get normally. We're going to start off with the clear-cut ones, okay? We'll start off with Clara. Clara is 100% a skip. This is a character you should absolutely not pull ever. If you pull her on an off banner, which means on a banner that isn't her own, it's whatever, you can't really control it, but never pull on her banner. She is just currently horrible. She's useful for nothing. She can be, a somewhat of a counter to Earth heroes like Mayreal in PvP, but Lena just does that infinitely better. So, yeah, just Clara isn't worth it. And yes, I know some people won't have Lena, but Clara is complete dog water outside of that. And even in that, it's whatever. Why would you invest that much for Clara to just be somewhat useful against a specific character or comp? Just isn't worth it. Next up, Mad Panda Trio. I have not seen these lads in anything for such a long time. They're borderline dead, I think. They're super fun to play, though. They have some really fun mechanics, especially with their big mechanic golem thing or whatever it is. Super fun, can be really, really interesting to use in Arena. However, they're not really stable in any content. Priscilla is once again just completely goofing off right now, not very useful. She's just significantly worse to Morian, and Morian's actually pretty good in PvP, while Priscilla isn't. Priscilla is just a dead shielding support defensive option. So these three are pretty much dead. No matter what, you don't want to pull for Clara, Mad Panda Trio, or Priscilla ever. Doesn't matter, right? There's two that are actually worth pulling, and one of them is must pull no matter what, depending on your situation. Miss Chrome is a situational pull. If you're an early to mid-game player, Chrome won't benefit you too much. If you're a mid-game player looking to get into, more so focusing into expeditions and stuff, Chrome is actually a really, really good option because she excels in dealing with group mob content, which is expedition. So she's going to be an absolute monster for it, and she's almost necessary for you to clear expedition properly. So if you're a mid-game player who's trying to take expedition more seriously, Chrome is a really, really good pickup. But if you're an early to mid-game player who does not care about expedition and can't even clear it, getting Chrome isn't going to do anything for you for a very, very long time. Now, let's cover Odal before we cover the character everyone has been waiting for, okay? Odal is not very useful outside of PvE, it seems. Her kit has nothing that would generally be useful for PvE content. There's pretty much no defense shred. There is very, very little utility to the team. Her whole kit is very selfish, which means it can work well in Arena and can possibly work in Coliseum. But in PvE, this is not a good kit. She is just a really crappy character in PvE. Maybe magically she could find some spot in light melee. I just don't think that's even remotely going to happen because she provides no utility to the team. So, yeah, you have to understand that a character, if they have DPS, that's good. But if they have utility, that makes them even better because you're always going to switch out new DPSs as soon as a better one drops. But better supports are really hard to find because most supports are specialized to an element or a damage type. So if a character can help an element or damage type, they're generally pretty useful in at least something. Odal doesn't have that, so that means she's completely out of PvE. Her kit also doesn't seem to have that raw damage output power to be useful for sheer damage. So she's probably not going to maintain that position for, pull worthiness ever, unless she either gets buffed or if you're interested in PvP. I can't give you a full rundown on her PvP capabilities yet, but she seems somewhat decent in there from, reading her kit and seeing some videos of it. However, can't give you a PvP rundown on it. Maybe I'll get back to you guys later. But for now, if you don't care for PvP, especially high-end PvP, Odal is just not worth it. Next up is the character everyone has been super, super eager and waiting for, Beth, the queen of story mode. She is must pull, right? If you're a new player and you don't have a good lead team, like for example, you don't have Claude, if you don't have Yunha, if you don't have Kamael, if you don't have those hyper carries, Beth is pretty much going to be a must pull. She can almost solo most of story as long as she has a good healer and tank beside her. So Beth, Maya, or another healer, and then Craig can just solo most of the story. It's super, super powerful. She is so tanky. And yeah, her EX is fundamental because you become unbelievably unkillable. Like, you genuinely become unkillable in story because there's always so many enemies around, which means her special ability will give you pretty much a 60% attack increase almost permanently and almost a 60% entire damage reduction, which is broken, mind you. It's super duper powerful, especially for story mode where you're going to be hitting lots of enemies and you're not going to have the raw stats needed to just tank that anyways. It's a super duper powerful character for that. Her EX weapon is genuinely insane. It's a dark type defense shred. And this is a shield generation with pretty much no internal cooldown, meaning you can perma uptime that shield as long as you're doing damage. So it's not like, oh, I hit the enemy, I get a 10% shield, I can't stack anymore or I can't do anything. No, it just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. Beth is super powerful for that. Her entire kit does ridiculous damage, even her chain skill, even though it does classify as rain damage, which means it's not getting some of the other buffs, but it's still 400%, which is very, very high multiplier, and it increases her melee attack by 40%. Her weapon skill is also pretty okay. It's not, too large of a range, but it is pretty good. And yeah, she is phenomenal. You absolutely need her EX. If you're a new player, must reroll for Beth and get her and her EX. If you don't have a main hyper carry, must roll for Beth, must get her EX. Super, super damn good character. The only flaw with Beth is that she is arguably one of the best characters, if not the best early game character, but she falls off in the mid game because she doesn't have a solid place in raids due to dark ranged being so powerful and other range teams being super strong and melee generally lacking support. She also doesn't, give you a lot of value in other PvE content, like, for example, expedition stuff where you may be, running other teams. So Beth really feels weird in mid-game, but then you hit that end-game point where you start taking Arena and Coliseum even more seriously, and she starts popping the heck off there. And yeah, early to mid-game, Beth does really well in Coliseum because she makes up for some of your stats with just her raw character power, but you're still gonna lose to stat gaps if you don't match stats, which is why I don't mention her being a clutch mid-game Coliseum character, because while she is very good at it, you can't really go beyond top 100 without raw stats, and top 100 is kind of a mid to end game standard, which you kind of have to reach to get good consistent gems. However, Beth, early game, super, super strong monster, good in pretty much every early game content, really useful in mid game in Colo and Arena. But outside of that, she doesn't really have a spot in most of the scaly mid-game content, But end-game, she starts really shining once you start taking PvP even more seriously again. But yeah, Beth is a must pull. I'll be making a more elaborate reroll guide and explanation for her as soon as the banner drops on global, so you guys will know when the banner's out instantly and know when you can summon for her. And if you have anyone else who needs these banner guides, make sure to forward this to them so everyone gets the information. And yeah, if you enjoyed this one, make sure to subscribe, like. You know what, I'm gonna stop asking this. If you want to do it, mate. If you don't, you don't. Right. Anyways, yeah, I hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you all in the next one.